Here is Joe Boland,
Joe.
Chief Mission Officer for Catholic Extension. He joins us now. Thank you, Joe, for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're going to talk a little bit about a wonderful thing that's going on in Arkansas. Maybe if you could talk a little bit first about the Catholic Church in Arkansas and Catholic Extension's role there.
Yeah, so Catholic Extension works with 87 dioceses across the country where there's a lack of economic resources, but there's certainly no lack of faith and creativity. And one of those 87 dioceses we work with is the Diocese of Little Rock, which covers the entire state of Arkansas. And when you're working in the South and many of the places across the South, the one thing we know about the Catholic Church is it's a small percentage of the overall population, maybe less than 5% in the state of Arkansas. And we love to lift up the example of what's happening in Arkansas in the Diocese of Little Rock as an example of a church that's really thriving. And you're finding this beautiful experience, beautiful expression of the Catholic Church in a place that you didn't think you would find it necessarily. And so Catholic Extension's role there is exactly what it is in other places. We help build churches for often growing Catholic communities. We help support and train leaders, including many seminarians. We support almost 500 seminarians across the country. And then the other thing that we do is that's part of our core work and mission since we began in 1905 is to support ministries of the Catholic Church that ensure that the presence of the Catholic Church is extended to the margins and to the poor. And that's also what we're doing in the state of Arkansas and what I'm here to talk about.
Joe, we had a chance to speak before the show, and I mentioned to you my deep respect and gratitude really to Catholic Extension Society for allowing me to be part of a familiarization trip to the border. And ever since then, I've thought and talked about the situation at the border in a much different way, having experienced it. But with regard to Arkansas, with less than 5% of the population being Catholic, as you say, why has there been so much success, or how has there been so much success in attracting new vocations to the priesthood and consecrated life? How do you do it?
Yeah, so that's been one of the fruits of this thriving church. Again, in a place that you wouldn't expect it, where Catholics are less than 5%. This is a diocese that in the past 15 years has ordained 51 men. And just to give some context to that, that there's probably only 150,000 Catholics throughout the state of Arkansas. If a comparable, if an archdiocese like Chicago or LA or Boston were ordaining as many young men per Catholic, we'd have hundreds of priests, in that same period. And so there is something happening there that is very, very special. The other thing that has occurred with this surge in new vocations to priesthood is that they've actually lowered the average age of their priests in Arkansas from 65 years old down to 49 years old. Wow. And so these are young men. They're coming from communities across the state of Arkansas, so they're homegrown vocations, so to speak. And they're really being born out of an experience of church that is very communal, very connected, and is certainly very vibrant in terms of the faith life there. And I think the other key part of the ingredient that they always share with us is that it's a missionary church. It's a church that understands that it's minority, it's a small percentage of the population, and if they're going to thrive as a Catholic community, it's up to them to live the faith, teach the faith, and carry it forward. And I think vocations to the priesthood has been one of the signs, one of the bits of evidence, if you will, that their mission to live the faith is really taking root in Arkansas.
And expanding on that, Joe, if you could, the missionary aspect of the identity of Arkansas, the missionary aspect to that, could you talk a little bit about what that means in practice in Arkansas?
Yeah, so Arkansas is a good microcosm of a lot of the dioceses that Catholic Extension works with. Bishop Reed mentioned, some of our work along the U.S.-Mexico border. And one of the things we know about that community is that there's something that the government defines as persistent poverty counties, where there's been really generational poverty and lack of infrastructure and resources for many years. And that's true as well in the state of Arkansas. There's many areas of that state where there's a tremendous amount of poverty. But that doesn't stop the church from doing its work. In fact, that is the motivating factor for the bishop and for the people to get out there, to establish a presence of the church in the areas where it's most difficult to do it in terms of resources. And so one of the things Catholic Extension has partnered with them on is to help build new mission churches, chapels in some of these areas where there's a real lack of financial resources, but there's a lot of faith. And there are people who are, desperately wanting to live out their faith and pass it on to their children. And so it's a great privilege for Catholic Extension to have worked with communities like Hamburg, Arkansas, which is in the very southern portion of the state. And they took an old tire shop, a Firestone tire shop, and they converted it into a beautiful new Catholic church because that's what they could afford. And that community is absolutely thriving and busting at the seams. And they continue to adopt that missionary posture. And I think that's what's making the whole engine, if you will, go and move forward. And it's such a privilege for us at Catholic Extension to be able to work with those communities, and an even greater privilege to be able to share the stories about some of the great successes that we're seeing in the Catholic Church.
Joe, we've talked about Arkansas, we've talked about the U.S.-Mexican border. Later on, we're going to be looking at the work of Catholic Extension in Camden, Mississippi. We're so grateful for the work of Catholic Extension, for you opening our eyes a bit more to it today. Where can people learn more about Catholic Extension Society and perhaps help out?
Yeah, well, certainly they can go to our website. That's catholicextension.org. And I would encourage anybody to do that. There's really hopeful, wonderful stories, things happening in the church that you wouldn't know necessarily unless you go there and can read about some of these success stories. So catholicextension.org, we also put out a quarterly magazine, and you can subscribe to that or ask for a copy of it if you'd like by going onto our website.
Perfect. Joe Boland, Chief Mission Officer for Catholic Extension Society, thank you for being with us. Have a great weekend, and may I anticipate the holiday in saying to you, Happy 4th of July.
Thank you so much. Same to you.
All right. God bless, Joe.